imaging centres based across the UK. So we're independent, whereby we're not affiliated to any dentist, so when you refer your patient to us, they literally do just come in for a scan. We take the scan in any format that you require. The pricing list is in here for you to view actually, and Alex will be touching on the variety of formats that CTDent provides. And we take the scan and then just simply send you the scan results via email. You create an account and you've got all access to your patient details on that, which again Alex will summarise in the presentation. In these packs, there's a price list, some referral forms. Our Bristol CT Dent Centre is in Clifton. Clifton Down, there's a map on the back of the referral if you wish to refer a patient perhaps. And there's an iPad manual, a price list as well, and some photo paper options. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. Alex will start the first half going through the CCT side, and then we'd like to do like a hands-on with our most popular format, which is the iCat Vision, and I'll be around to help you guys practice that on your laptops if you wish.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
If you email the patient link, that is not the patient CT scan. That's only the link for the for logging to CTDent, isn't it? Or you send the scan by email.
The scan, the link basically goes to our server,
Okay.
and the scan is stored on the server. So when you're clicking on that link to download the scan, you're effectively logging into our server to extract files.
Okay, I'm talking to you regarding the email, because if you send emails to a person, that's non-encrypted or non-secure email you're sending it to.
The emails are linked directly to our server system.
Okay.
So we don't actually write the email. So when we send an email with a link on it, we're not actually typing that email. We're literally clicking on the link on the patient's booking, which goes direct from our server, and then it sends that email with the link integrated into it. Which is why sometimes you might get an email with no link in it, because there's no scan uploaded on the server.
Yeah.
So this is how it works. It's a secure system that we've kind of built ourselves that is going through changes. Don't worry, it's perfectly secure. We're not sat there all the time typing out these emails word for word and attaching things onto them. It very rarely happens.
Okay, I'll pass you over to Alex. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so my name's Alex. I am a radiographer. You'll see by this slide. So I deal with X-rays a lot of the time. I'm not a dentist. I've got no dentist training whatsoever. So you're more than welcome to ask me questions about radiation and scans, but when it comes to dental practice and how you actually do things, I'm not the man to go to at all. So a little bit about myself. So I trained as a diagnostic radiographer at St George's Hospital in Tooting, where I think you do some work as well. So I started off there in 2004, and unfortunately as a radiographer got rotated into the Max Fax department. And a lot of diagnostic radiographers hate doing dental imaging. They don't see it as a speciality like CT or MRI. So I got a bit of a taste for doing this, of doing periapicals and
I was there in
occlusals.
2005 as well. I was there in 2005 in the Max Fax department as well. When Mr. Smith was there, Nick Hyde was there.
Yes, Nick Hyde.
Yeah. Okay.
So you must remember Ranji as well.
Yes.
Type ship.
Steve Walsh was SPR at that time.
Yep, these names are all familiar. It takes me back. So I got a bug at St George's, and from there I went on to Guy's Hospital and had the pleasure of working with Eric Waits, Jackie Brown, Rosum, etc. And it was whilst I was there that I got a taste of doing cone beam CT. So what happened? I moved on to CTDent in Devonshire Place in central London. At the time we were a very small company. I believe there was only about 5 of us on the team, whereas now we've got 21 employees. So that's how the company's grown over the past decade. We're based in Devonshire Place, and the building we're in is actually called Conan Doyle House. And it's very, very close to Baker Street Tube Station in London. And Arthur Conan Doyle actually had an office in the building. He didn't live there, he lived a bit further down the road, but he worked in the building. So we do have funny things go on at 2 Devonshire Place, and we are convinced that it's going to success. So, CTDent. So what are we about? So we create really good quality X-ray images for yourselves to use in practice. So really assisting yourselves as clinicians, so giving you a tool that you may not want to have in your own practice. And I've put on here just a few images just of our Bristol Centre. So we're based in Litfield House Medical Centre, which is in Clifton. And this is actually in our scanning room up on the 2nd floor of the building. So I just thought I'd show you a few images of the scanner in situ. so where your patients actually go to. And if you ever want to visit one of our sites to see where your patients go to, you're more than welcome to come in and just drop us a visit, just to see what we do. So what am I going to go over you this afternoon? So, brief history of cone beam CT, so where did it come from? How it works. I know it's a Sunday afternoon, there's not going to be much physics, okay? There is a bit, but not much. A bit about radiation dose and some up-to-date figures for you. Referral criteria, very important for cone beam CT. How we use cone beam CT specifically for implantology, so I'm not going to cover other areas like endo or molars, but just implantology. Some artifacts that can happen on the scans, and some different format options as well. And then what we'll do is we'll take a little bit of a break, just because there's going to be a lot of information to take in, and then we'll do a hands-on session, okay? I will provide a PDF copy of this lecture as well, so don't worry about taking photographs of the screen, but by all means make notes if you want to, okay? I'm not one of these people who won't share information.
So can you PDF the email when you're doing the certificates as well?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, we can do that, that's not a problem. So, where did cone beam CT come from? It wasn't originally developed for dental imaging. It was actually originally developed for cardiac imaging, but it was the kind of technology that could be moved into other areas. So, for example, today it's not just used in dental, it's also used in radiotherapy in a very big way prior to planning. And it can also be used for mammography, it could be possible for the future, and also orthopedic imaging as well. So, from the late 1990s it was used in maxillofacial imaging. And the first scanner in existence was the Newton 9000 in 1996. And this was quite significant because we beat the Americans at this. They didn't get there first. Europeans got there first in Italy. And then, so this is an image of the Newton 9000. So it was the only cone beam CT scanner, and Newton was still the only brand as well, where the patient actually has to lie down in the scanner. And lots of patients hate this. Whenever you say to a patient you're going for a cone beam CT scan, they get it into their head, they're going to be going for a long tunnel, it's going to take a long amount of time. So they're quite pleased when they see something that looks more like 3D Akitomo or an iCAD Classic machine. So these were the original cone beam CT scanners. The Akitomo is still used a lot, and the iCAD machines are still used a lot as well. So you'll tend to find these kind of machines more in a hospital setting, which is where they first began in the UK. So what do we have now? So this slide just shows you a few different examples of cone beam CT scanners available on the market. There's an awful lot of them now. The more dental shows you go to, the more newer ones you see that are introduced. Some of them use the same technology and they just have different branding on them. So for example, Instrumentarium, Cavo, they're the same company but they're just different branding. And the only difference between the scanners really is the names of the motors inside. That's the only difference. So, starting from the top here, we've got a Marita X800, which is a relatively new model. We've got a Cavo OP3 Pro. We've got one of these in our Colchester centre. So this is a relatively newer scanner. And it has the ability to actually do large field scans. But it does 2 separate rotations around the patient. And there's a device with it that kind of liken it to something from Silence of the Lambs. It's got like this big structure and the patient has to put their head in it and they're completely strapped in. We haven't used it yet, but it's quite daunting to look at. We've got the iCAD Flex here, which is a new model. So this theoretically replaced the iCAD Classic and the next generation scanners. And we've actually got one of these in our London centre now. We didn't want to take the risk of what happened in Bristol, in the dental hospital here, of the scanner actually malfunctioning one July afternoon. Because you can't get the replacement parts anymore. The only parts that exist are in the boot of an engineer's car. So we took the decision to invest in a newer model. This scanner here, this is quite an interesting one. This is the 3Shape X1 scanner. And this really hasn't been marketed in the UK that much yet. I have seen one of these in Europe. It's quite a novel design. You'll see there's no hand rest for the patient, there's no chin rest. It works via a camera system, so the patient lays a sensor on the top of their head, and it can actually calculate the image artifact on there as a result. So it would be good for patients with such like Parkinson's disease, for example. It can also have a field of view that goes down to a 2 centimetre diameter. So we're now talking of just imaging a single tooth, literally. So, and this is something I would love for the future. General radiography, you have a collimator board on your X-ray machine, so you can pull in from side to side. Cone beam CT, it's not quite there yet, but we have asked the engineers. Every time they come in and say, what do you want? A proper collimator board, please. So we can literally get down to the smallest field it be possible, and we have that Sirona Galileos, and Planmeca Pro Max. So it's a selection of some scanners that are available.
Which one has the Bristol one? Which one is it? Leica Classic?
No,
Okay.
no, I'll come on to that one. So, now for the physics part on a Sunday afternoon. Okay? So, I'm going to keep this nice and simple and straightforward for you. So, how does cone beam CT work? The first thing to remember is cone beam CT is not CT. It is a completely different technology. So, they both work in opposite ways of one another. Okay? So, you have your X-ray source, which is this dot here. You have an X-ray detector and the mouse being the patient. So where the technology gets its name from is how the X-ray beam actually performs. So it diverges out, so it forms a cone-shaped X-ray beam. So you have the flat panel detector, and this rotates around the patient. So effectively you have the patient within a gantry, and that gantry rotates around. So the X-ray source and the X-ray detector at the same time. What makes it different from medical CT is medical CT is not a large flat panel detector. It's multiple, it's one row detectors, and it gradually builds up the scan, which is why it takes a lot longer. So cone beam CT, you're looking anywhere now from about 5 to 40 seconds. Medical CT, anything up to 10, 15 minutes in some cases. So there's a single rotation around the patient. That's quite significant because the patients are quite shocked when we go back in the room and say, was that it? They expect it to go on for a lot longer. It creates what we call a cylinder of data. So the first thing you get from the scan is just this block of data. There's nothing else you can do with it at that time. The difference between medical CT, it builds up slices of data. So individual slices gradually are built up. Cone beam CT is one big cylinder. And that cylinder is broken down into what we call voxels. So voxels are tiny little elements of the scan. So the more voxels you have in the scan, the more detail you have, which is where resolution comes in. When people talk about voxel sizes and resolution, this is what this is. And they're quite significant as well for cone beam CT because they are cubic in nature. Medical CT, they're not, they're more rectangular. So when it comes to geometrical accuracy, cone beam CT has got a level on that. And it's also good for hard tissue structures such as teeth and bone. It's not good for soft tissue structures. So, for example, if you had a lesion in the bone, medical CT, you probably have to do a further scan of the patient because on cone beam CT, you wouldn't see if there's any expansion into the soft tissues. You might see some outlines, but you would need further investigation of that lesion. And the other important thing with cone beam CT is you've probably heard the word Hounsfield units before. Hounsfield units don't apply to cone beam CT. Some softwares like the iCAD Vision do have an availability in there to do HU statistics, but it's not a reliable way of measuring bone density. The real only proper way with cone beam CT is a visual, and that's always best more in a dark room. So how the radiologists sit, scurried away in their rooms with all the lights on, that's the best way to view an X-ray image. You get a lot of information that way. So what are voxels? So this picture really demonstrates it quite well. So they're known as volume pixels. So on a screen when you take a normal image on your camera and you zoom in, you will see the pixels. When you really zoom in, you can see the little boxes. Effectively, what that cylinder of data that you've done with cone beam CT is made of is volume pixels, so chunks of things all mapped together. They're always the smallest element of the 3D volume. So, for example, if you were doing an endodontic case and you're looking for a very fine fracture, then clinically you feel that it is there. If your crack in that tooth is actually smaller than the smallest voxel size that you use, you won't see it on the scan because you're not getting a resolution high enough and sharp enough to actually see it. Each of these voxels represents an individual X-ray absorption of the exposure, so each one has its own little grey level. And they currently range between 0.076 to 0.4. So, if we look at this slide now, so this just gives a comparison of the smaller voxels against larger voxels. And you can see it has a difference on the spatial resolution, so the ability to distinguish fine structures on the scan, noise levels, dosage as well, because for the higher voxels, you have a lower MAS. For smaller voxel size scans, you need more MAS, you need more X-ray power to get that image. And it also has an impact on the image reconstruction time as well. A A scan taken at 0.4 voxels can take about 20 seconds to reconstruct. Something of 0.0 to 0.6, you'd be looking more in the region of about 3 to 4 minutes because there's a lot more data for the actual computer to process. And these images at the bottom, I hope you can see them clearly enough, but these just show the difference in voxel sizes. So this is a higher voxel size of 0.2 millimeters versus 0.3 and 0.4. The 0.2, you can see there's a lot more sharpness and definition in the bone compared to 0.4. So this is a difference between it. So for implantology, we tend to go between 0.2 and 0.25. We feel to see that as enough information for you to actually plan the case. So scanning chain, I'll take you through this briefly as well. So patient preparation is the first thing. Then we actually select a scanning protocol. So at CT Den, the radiographers not only act as operators, but because they actually protocol the scans, they are acting as practitioners as well, because they're making a decision based on what information has been provided on the referral form as to what field of view is used and what resolution as well. And in some of our centres, what scanner. We do patient positioning and stabilisation to make sure you minimise patient movement. One of the problems with cone beam CT is because you're taking one volume at one time, data. With medical CT, because it's made up of slices, if you get patient movement, it just impacts that one slice. With cone beam CT, because you have the cylinder of data, it affects that whole cylinder. We have image acquisition and then image processing. So, patient preparation, absolutely vital for cone beam CT. First thing we always say to the patient, especially in winter, is to remove any outer clothing. So coats, scarves, hats. What happens when we get the patient in the room? They want to take everything off. It happens very regularly. I remember when I was doing my training at St George's, one of the lecturers there said the first thing that a patient does, whether they go to a hospital, dental surgery, wherever they go, there's a box outside that none of us can see, and the patients leave their common sense in it. So you probably find this a lot when they come in. They're not thinking straight, they do weird and wonderful things. So that's the first one. The next one, also vital, is they remove anything metallic around the head and neck. Now we have signs up in all of our centres for the patients to say, if you've got any jewellery on, to remove it. What do we get? Do I need to take my bra off? That's below the neckline. Dentures as well. You'd be surprised what we've come across. We'll take a scan. We'll say to the patient behind, have you got anything in your mouth that you can take out? It's a very, very easy question to follow. You get the scan on the screen, they've got a denture in there. You say to them, are you sure there's nothing in your mouth you can take out? Oh, I have got a denture, but I haven't taken it out for a few years. So you start thinking to yourself, really? The other one is piercing as well. We've had to get pliers before to prize these things out because they don't take them out and they're really manky to look at. Hair clips, hair extensions. No, haven't got any. You look at the scan, they're there. You have to be very, very careful. Hearing aids as well, we tend to just get those out just at the last possible minute so the patients can still hear us as well. Radiographic templates, if you use those, piece of advice, always make sure you try them in the patient before you send them for a scan, because there's nothing worse than a patient coming in and the template doesn't fit or it gets stuck. Or the patient has tried to play with it at home and they come into us and it's broken in two, or there's something missing from it. So people do strange things when you give them the thing.
Just a quick question. You must have seen quite a lot of different types of stents in your career. What's the simplest, cheapest, and effective stent you will advise?
The simplest thing would be an acrylic with, so an acrylic base with possibly barium sulfate integrated into it. That is really one of the easiest ones. These big chunky ones that you can get that stick out the patient's mouth and have all sorts of wax guides with them as well, they're very, very tricky. So they're not easy to use.
So guys, barium sulfate, you can get it from a dental supplier, incorporate that into your acrylic a denture or anything which the patient is wearing, and that's the best stent you can get, because if you're going to do amalgam, that's going to, I think you're going to cover that here.
Yeah, it causes scatter and beam hardening, so it degrades image quality. So even barium will to a certain extent, but not as much as in other certain circumstances. So always make sure the stent fits the patient. Very, very clear on that. Always make sure it fits. And things like if you want us to put something over the denture, make sure it can easily come off. We've had solutions given to us before now. We've had to send the patient back to the dental surgery because we can't actually remove it. And ball bearings and wax, it's not a good idea to give a radiographer these things because we don't have the foggiest what we're doing with them.
Yeah.
We have no idea. So it's always best to do something that can be put in that has been tested beforehand. Okay? And also, if the machine allows it, do a dry run as well. Show the patient what's going to happen. You've got an anxious patient, claustrophobic. We've even been known to put teddy bears into the scanners before now to show children what's going to happen. So there's nothing wrong with doing it. If it's functional on the machine, use it. It has its benefits. So, fields of view. So there's really three categories of field of view for premium CT. First one, what we call up to a 5 centimetre diameter. So that's height and width. So that would be classed as a small field scan.
This is called FOV as well. FOV.
It can be classed as an FOV or an ROI in some instances as well. Some people might use region of interest. So field of view or region of interest. The next one we've got is up to 6 to 11 centimetres in height and diameter. So that's known as a medium field of view. And then we get into the large field of view. So this could be anything from an 11 centimetre up to 24 centimetre diameter scan. So really for implantology, you'd be really looking at the small field, or in some cases the medium field, but you should never really be looking at a large field. And we do see this from practices where they send a scan to us to convert it into iCAD vision or to have a report done. And they're looking at placing an implant. You can see where the implant's going to go, but they've done a scan of the whole facial skeleton. And you think, why? There's no justification for it. You don't want to be seeing anatomy you don't want to be reporting on. There's no need for it, especially in today's age. So, what have we got in Bristol? So, we have an instrumentarium, OP300. So, we've had this since we started. When did we start the Bristol site? 2015?
15, I'd say, yeah.
So we've had this in situ since then. Still working perfectly well. Unlike one of the scanners we have in London, which isn't technically the original scanner anymore because most things have been replaced, this one is still in its original system, original parts are all integrated on it. It's a very good scanner. It was an upgrade from the DP700. So everything that was wrong on that scanner has been improved to this one, and then the more modern Caper one is now an improvement to this particular model. So what does this one do? So it has 4 fields of view on it. So it has a 5x5 field of view, which is good for local diagnostics. So a single implant case, or a tooth with a pathology related to it, or a lower third molar. It also has a 8x6 field of view. So the 8 is the width and the 6 is the height. The width isn't quite widthy enough for us. We would have preferred to have a 9 or a 10 width on these particular scanners, purely because when you're scanning the mandible, you can't get the 8s with this field of view. It's very, very tricky. So for the maxilla it's ideal, but for the mandible we have to resort to using a larger field of view or do 2 sectional scans of either side just to get all of the jaw in. So this particular field of view you'd be using if you're doing multiple implants in one jaw. Okay? We've then got an 8x8 field of view, which has its benefits but has its disadvantages as well. This field of view is designed to scan both jaws together. Now in reality, if you use this field of view, you either miss the lower border of the mandible or you miss part of the sinus. And we have a rule at CTDent, and whenever we do a scan of the maxilla, we always try and get at least a third of the maxillary sinus in.
The third you mean from the alveolar crest, from
Yeah.
the bottom?
Yeah, yeah. We always try and get that in. Now with this field of view, it's not always possible. So sometimes if you have a both jaws scan in one of our centres that has this particular scanner, you'll find you'll get 2 scans back from us purely for that reason, because we want to get the full anatomical area on for you. This field of view can also be used for imaging the sinuses as well. So effectively you raise the actual field of view up on the scanner, so you raise the gantry up, so you can include the full maxillary sinuses on this as well. And then we have a 15x8 field of view, which is a 15 width and an 8 height. So you can see the problem we have when we're trying to do scans just of the lower jaw. This actually takes in most of the upper jaw as well, because it's designed to fit in the TMJ. So what we're working on at CTDent is actually a new platform for the patient to rest their chin on. So when using this field of view, it actually raises them up higher. So we're actually limiting what we're actually scanning. So we're going to try this and see if it works to actually be able to